Well, Sydney, I told you on the phone when you and I first talked that I thought you were a miracle, and I think sitting in front of me is a true miracle. Do you believe that? What runs through your mind?
I think that, well, God kept me here for a reason. Because I really shouldn't be here, but I am. So I'm just, giving him all the honor because, stuff like that don't happen every day.
When you and I talked and we were looking at a location, I said, "Are you okay with even seeing the bridge?" And there it is, right behind you.
I know.
mean, you take a look at it. What do you think now when you see it?
I don't know. I kind of draw a blank, and then I look away.
Is that the first time you've seen it since the accident?
This close, yeah. And I don't know. I just it is kind of hard to look at, but I mean, I'm not there. I'm here, so.
Hallelujah.
Yep.
You are here. We are so thankful for that.
Yep.
Well, let's start about March 1st, your day, March 1st, that Friday. Just tell me how it started and what led you, your route to cross the bridge. It was right at, I think, about noon.
Yeah. My day started out like, I didn't really think too much about it. I just came in, I took my paperwork and I left. And I got to a stop downtown, and it was a pallet drop. I had 2 pallet drops, and they loaded one of the pallets. I was at a dock. They loaded one of the pallets on the left side of the truck. So that meant I was gonna have to pull the product off, sit it by the steps, and wheel it in. And I was very upset about that. So I did that, and then I went to my next stop, and I emptied out half the truck, but I still was behind.
You're in downtown Louisville.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the fish market. And I was like, well, I ain't trying to be out all day. So I was like, I'm gonna just take the 2nd Street Bridge. And, as soon as I was just going on about my business, and then, it happened. And it happened so fast, and I was just thinking about how upset I was earlier in the day and how insignificant it was compared to where I was at that moment.
Well, let's rewind just a little bit. So you're leaving downtown Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you select the 2nd Street Bridge?
I was behind. I was like way behind schedule because of, the way that the truck was loaded.
So it's shortest route.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was gonna save me some time, but
Now the crash happened on that end. So tell me, you were nearly across the bridge. What was going on? How long were you on it? And just take me through it step by step.
So after the impact and I went over the railing.
Well, tell me leading up to the impact. So you're driving along the bridge. What happened?
A pickup truck in the 2 southbound lanes. He crossed over into the northbound lane, and then he hit me. And once he hit me, he took my suspension out, which meant that I can't. It didn't matter which way I turned the wheel. The truck was gonna go whatever direction it wanted to go in, and I felt myself veering off to the left, and then I saw myself going over the railing, and I was like, well, this is it.
You knew you were going over the railing?
I did. Well, not immediately after the impact, but I say like 2 seconds later,
When the truck hit you, what happened to your semi?
I lost control. I held on to the wheel, and once he hit, because I couldn't swerve into the other lane. That's what they tell you when you learn how to drive a truck. You just keep going straight. It don't matter, because if you go in to turn off, you could make it worse than if you just take it head on. And so I did that, and I mean, it's physics. I didn't think that something so small would be able to throw me off like that.
What did it do physically to your truck? You said did it lock up your steering, or what happened?
It took the steering out. So like I don't know exactly because I didn't get to look at the truck after the accident, but that's what I was told by the safety people at Cisco.
You were driving it. What did it suddenly feel like when you got hit?
I felt like I just lost control, you know. I tried to, when I felt myself going over, I was like, I couldn't try to stop it or nothing. It was just, and then I'm just veering off to the left. And then.
Tell me about going through the railing and just what you must have seen, witnessed, and experienced.
When I went through the railing, I was like, I was just thinking like, wow, this is crazy to die like this, you know, and I really thought that I was about to die. And I was like, well, I can try to hurry up and take the seatbelt off and jump out of the truck if I have enough time to.
You were thinking? I
was thinking this. I'm like, when I felt myself going over, I'm like, I'm gonna have to jump. I can't swim either. So I was like, I saw. And then I started thinking that, and then it stopped. And once it stopped, I just looked down and I saw the river. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know how bad it was. I thought that the trailer was still on the bridge. I didn't know that it was like this. And I just looked up and I saw people coming towards, you know, the railing, and they was, you know, talking to me. And it was one man, he stayed with me the whole time and talked to me until the firefighters came. But when I was looking down, I was praying, but I was also like, if this truck falls, I'm gonna have to jump out, because if not, the Ohio River is 128 feet deep. In Louisville, I looked it up. I was like, if I don't, I'm gonna be at the bottom of the river, because that truck was full.
When this had to happen so fast.
It did.
And all these things were going through your mind in such a brief time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When I saw myself going over, I thought it was over.
So when you went through the rail, you saw the river approaching you, and then what happened? And
then it stopped. It caught onto the bridge.
That had to be violent.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
When it caught the bridge, I froze. But I was thinking of an exit plan, if it was even possible. You know, I was thinking, you know, if it starts going, you're going to have to move fast. You're going to have to unbuckle that seatbelt and open that door and jump out, because if not, you're going to drown. I would rather drown trying to swim than be submerged underneath the water and not be able to get out.
I mean, things had to be flying in your cab. I mean, describe that scene once you went over the rail.
I didn't really have a lot of, because my stuff was on the floor. So I had my phone in the dash, so I could use my GPS to see how long it was going to take me to get to my next stop. And I just, you know, I was like, I have to be still. I have to be still, because if I move an inch, the truck might shift and, you know, fall over. So I sat there and I just, you know, I started praying, and, you know, I kept asking the person I was talking to, you know, how long is it going to be? Are they on the way? And he kept saying, they on the way, they coming. And I'm like.
So right after you go through the rail, there had to be moments of silence before any emergency people got there. When you say you were still and frozen, what do you mean by that?
I had my hand on the steering wheel, gripped on it, and I just was trying to, you know, I had my foot on the brake too. And my foot was on the brake and I had my hand on the steering wheel. And I sat like that for a long time.
40 minutes?
Yep. And I was praying, I was crying, and I was trying to just stay calm and just hope and pray that they would be able to get me out, because I didn't think they would be able to.
How were you staying calm? What were you saying to yourself? How was that happening in your mind?
I just was thinking, like I said, if I start, freaking out and screaming and, moving around, the truck might fall into the river. So I was like, you have to be still.
You weren't reaching for your cell phone.
No, I didn't until he was pulling me out, because, my wallet, keys, everything, that was all I had, and I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna get my stuff back.
You were thinking that.
When I felt like I was safe, yeah, because I was like, I have to get my phone.
So, Sydney, let's go back to how long do you think you were in there with silence, looking at the river, before you heard a voice up on the bridge yelling down to you?
I can't remember, but it was probably like a minute or two.
Tell me about those moments.
I couldn't believe that it was happening. I was like, I can't believe this, that I'm really hanging over the river. And I was just in shock. I was in shock. I was like, this is crazy,
Was your window down? Mm-hmm. So tell me when you first heard somebody, I guess it was a Louisville firefighter.
No, it was a civilian. He was a civilian.
And what was he saying to you?
He was just he just looked really upset at where I was at in the position I was in, and concerned, and he was trying to reassure me, somebody's coming, we already called the fire department, and yeah.
And he's shouting to you.
Yeah.
And you can hear him clearly, even though you're pretty far over that railing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else stand out in your mind there before suddenly the rescue begins?
I was just praying that, the truck wouldn't shift and wouldn't nothing happen in the middle, until he got to me. I was just praying,
And you were making your escape plans in case that happened. So the fire department gets here, and tell me what suddenly you see happening. What were they communicating to you?
They just kept telling me, we coming, just let us set up this rope system, and we got somebody coming down to get you. And that relieved me, but I didn't really get relieved until I got out of the truck, and then my feet touched the ground, Then I finally, I was like, okay, now I can relax. And it just, everything after that.
So you're in the cab. Tell me when suddenly you see Bryce Carden in that harness appear in your vision.
Yes, what was I thinking?
Well, I guess you're there for a while, and then suddenly here's your rescuer.
I was happy.
Well, how did all that work? Did he open the door? Take me through that if you can.
So he pulled me through the window. They lowered him down. He gave me the harness. I put the harness on, but I still had my seatbelt on. So he had to cut me out of my seatbelt, and I grabbed my phone. When I saw them coming, I tried to grab my phone real slow and shove it in my cargo pocket. And once he came down and put the harness on me and cut the seatbelt off, and I took my foot off that air brake, the truck it made a noise, and we both
It's a loud exhale,
Yep.
almost like an explosion.
Yep. And he was like, my heart dropped. I was like, yep, mine did too. But we just prayed and prayed until.
Then when he came, first communicated with you, talked to you, did you all pray then? What did he
Yes.
say to you?
He was explaining to me, how to put the harness on. And, he was like, are you a praying woman? And I was like, yep. And we just started praying. And
Do you remember what you said?
no, I don't. I was just grateful, very grateful.
Grateful.
How long did you pray? It was like I'm sure it was fast.
I just kept crying out to God, please, Lord, just give me another chance. And
So you put the harness on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
So you're praying with Bryce. Tell me more about what you all said together.
We just were praying to get back to safety, really. And just, that's pretty much, I was praying for, I got what I prayed for. Somebody came and got me out of the truck. And we were praying, just to get back on the ground and out of harm's way.
What was he like to you? Reassuring? What? How
He
did all
was
that?
trying to make sure I stayed calm and I didn't start, doing anything that could compromise our safety. Yeah, he just was telling me, just it's only gonna be a little bit longer, and then we finally got back on the bridge.
Tell me about going through the window. What was that like?
I don't even know how that happened or how I got out like that, but it happened so quick. He cut the seatbelt off, and then I took my foot off the brake, and then he just pulled me out, and I think it was just like adrenaline.
So you're in that harness. Tell me about heading up toward the bridge again.
That was scary. That was very scary. We had to do some training like that when I was in the Army. They made us do like firefighter training for a couple of months, and I never thought that I would not to be the victim, to have to be rescued, and I knew that the sister, I knew I was I wouldn't fall out of the harness is what I'm saying. I knew I wasn't gonna fall out, but it was just terrifying to be that high up in the air and look down and all you see is the Ohio River. It was, it was hard. So I tried to keep my head up and not look down.
Was he physically holding you?
Mm-hmm.
And talking to you along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Saying what?
I don't remember.
You don't?
Mm-mm.
A blur.
Yeah.
Bryce publicly has said many times he's thanked you for making that rescue happen because you stayed calm and you were perfect for him. What did you think when you heard him say that you actually aided in your own rescue?
I was, glad, but I was more like, grateful that he came and got me. I appreciated the kind words from him.
The whole thing just happened so fast.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you rerun it through your mind today?
I try not to think about it now. I try not to go back to that day too often in a negative way. I try to look at it as I'm still here, so I try to keep the bad part of it out of my mind.
Are there things you continue to remember that you had forgotten?
No, not really. It's just certain things trigger me. Like I was driving across the bridge last week and I saw a bunch of lights and my heart started racing because they closed a couple of lanes down on I-65 and I was like, I had to calm myself down because I was like, I don't want to get stuck on the bridge. I'm trying to cross it and get where I gotta go. And
so you have driven across the 2nd Street Bridge?
not the 2nd Street, the Kennedy Bridge. Yeah, they had some lanes closed and I was like, it was early in the morning.
What do you think about driving across bridges these days?
As long as it ain't that one, as long as I got enough lanes to move around in and I'm not limited to two very narrow lanes, as long as I get across, I'm good.
The 40 minutes. Did it go by fast or was it an eternity?
It felt like an eternity. It did, because 40 minutes goes by fast. Even if you're just sitting around not doing nothing, it goes by fast. But that day, it felt like I was hanging for hours.
And your view was directly the river.
Yep.
You're still holding the steering wheel with
It's
your
like-
foot on the brake.
It's like sitting in a chair and it's like sitting like this, but the river is right in front of you. And that's what I saw.
You describe it matter-of-factly, almost as if, I'm just wondering about you've even told me you've looked at the dash cam video from Cisco.
That had to be something.
That was hard. It was hard. Not so much the impact, but the end, before it cut out when I was screaming. That was hard to watch.
The dash cam video would be just like reliving it all over again, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It was hard to watch.
Why did you want to see it?
I had to. They wanted me to see it. My attorney did. And it was really shortly after, the accident. So it was really, a lot. Now I'm starting to, heal and move forward, and I don't know how I would react to watching it now. It hasn't been that long, but I've made a significant amount of progress mentally as far as the accident is concerned. I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm not scared to drive.
Or talk about it. I'm amazed that you're able to do it as calmly as you are. Why do you think you're able to do that and talk about it now? And tell me about recovering and moving forward.
I have my moments, but God has me here for a reason, and I have to fulfill my purpose in life, and I can't let something like that stop me from doing what I'm supposed to do for him, because he brought me out of it, and he doesn't want me to just live in fear the rest of my life, and I know that I wouldn't be doing what I was supposed to do if I lived like that, afraid to just keep living, and looking over my shoulder and thinking, something's gonna happen, every time I get behind the wheel of my vehicle,
So moving forward, but no more 2nd Street Bridge.
Never. I got in the Uber one day, and he was about to start going across the 2nd Street Bridge. I said, "No, you can't do that."
Did you tell him why?
Yes.
What did he say?
He was like, that was you? And I'm like, yes. Can you please go across the toll bridge?
You'll pay it. You're probably the only person I've ever heard requested the toll bridge.
I used to never take it. I used to always take the 2nd Street, when I was leaving work and stuff like that, but not no more.
Are you amazed that you're able to laugh at any of this now, going on 3 months?
No, because anybody that knows me, they know how I am. I try to be resilient and not just sit and, if something bad happens, I don't want nothing to let something like that to keep me from living my life,
Well, let's go back to Bryce. What do you think of him?
I think that he is a really kind person, and I'm very and brave, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to go rappel down off of a bridge and get. I wouldn't be able to do that. I admire him a lot, and I appreciate him. Him and his wife are very kind people. They came to meet me at Cisco, and I got to meet his daughter and stuff. So I keep in contact with them.
They check on you.
Yep. I ask them how they doing, how's the baby,
Do you think your time in the military helped you through this?
Yes. They teach you how to survive in scary situations. I never had to really be in a dangerous situation when I was in the military. I never went overseas or nothing like that, but they make you, they teach you that in boot camp. You have to be disciplined. And if you're not, that can cost you your life and the person's life next to you. So, it did help.
You say people who know you, they would know one thing is that you're a rule follower.
Yeah, for the most part. For the most part. If it's, something serious like, my job and, my son or anything like that, of course. But
Tell me your thoughts on the reaction. It was seen globally.
I was really upset. I was upset because I was like, this is always gonna be a part of me. And I was like, I don't really like a lot of attention. I don't. I like to, get up, go to work, take my son to his appointments, and, just, I like my routine, and I felt like that threw everything that I had going on off. And, I get it. It was, all over the world, but I just don't like that kind of attention.
Your name really wasn't well known right off the bat in that, but do people know who you are? Are strangers talking to you about this now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've found out.
Mm-hmm.
What did they say to you?
Was that you on the bridge? And I'm like, yep. And I kind of just try to change the subject. If it's somebody I don't know, yeah.
A lot of people say they don't know that they would have been as calm and cool as you were, or they don't know that they could have ever gotten over it afterwards.
I've been through a lot of painful stuff in my life, and I lost 2 friends to suicide back to back, and that was very hard for me. So if I had to pick myself up and keep on moving from that, I survived. So I just have to be grateful for that, and I have to keep moving because I have a little boy that I have to take care of. That means the whole world to me.
That goes back to the purpose that you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
That's your purpose, and that's why God saved you.
Yep. And I think he wanted for me to be a testimony, to speak out and show people that, he showed everybody that he was real that day, but for me to speak on it and let people know that he does exist. And even, because I feel like, I didn't deserve that. I didn't do nothing to deserve that, but he saw that he felt like I did, but I don't think that I deserved it. I'm just glad that he was merciful enough on me and spared me,
It wasn't your time to walk with Jesus.
No.
You're going to go back to work.
Yep.
for the same company. What should that say to people about Sydney Thomas?
I mean, I've been with Cisco for a while now, and it's a hard job, you know. But my coworkers are like family to me, and I'm very comfortable where I'm at. You know, I know how to do my job. I know what to expect. I know what not to expect, and it would just be really difficult for me to go somewhere else. You know,
Are you going to drive a semi?
not right away, but they want to ease me back into work. You know,
Which would be driving a semi eventually? Will you request that you don't drive across bridges, or what are your thoughts on that?
I already told them I'm not going to Indiana no time soon, if ever again.
No bridges
No,
in a semi.
no. If I can help it, but
As a company, have they been good to you?
yes, they have. They have went above and beyond to accommodate to my needs, and I appreciate that.
Briefly, we were talking earlier. Let's talk about the physics of that truck, because the CEO even brought up the fact that it has a pin was holding the two
kingpin
separate
and fifth
trailers
wheel.
together. And you've seen the close-up photos of that truck wedged against the 95-year-old Second Street Bridge. How did it hold?
Well, God, for one, and other than that, I mean, I really don't know. I don't. I mean,
It wasn't just the bridge, was it? It was that pin.
that kingpin and the fifth wheel. I guess, you know, I got a good tractor that day. I don't know, because I ain't got no assigned truck. But yeah, I don't know what to say besides God, because sometimes if you ain't paying attention, when you hooking up that truck and trailer, you can drop, like, even if you think you hear the click, because I've dropped a trailer before. You pull out and you crank let that landing gear up, that whole trailer's gonna go forward and hit the ground. Because I've done it when I thought that I heard it click, you know, with all that weight. So yeah, and that was a lot of weight.
How's this community been to you and helped you in your healing?
The trucking community?
The whole community. How have you been embraced?
I appreciate all the thoughts and prayers, you know, and people coming from all over and offering assistance to me and my family.
Has it helped you move forward?
Mentally, yes. But, you know, I appreciate everything that people have done.
What do you want to say to folks? I mean, they lived with you through the most harrowing 40 minutes of most everybody's life.
Yeah.
Was with you there that day.
I don't really know. I don't. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I appreciate all of the kind words and the thoughts and the prayers and stuff like that, and people trying to help. And I appreciate, you know, obviously the rescue crew and Bryce and everybody. I'm just thankful.
So your strongest prayers, I guess, had to be the moment you were looking at the Ohio River.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You think that's where it made the difference?
Absolutely. Because sometimes you pray, and I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I pray and I don't think God is listening. But he was that day.
Let's drink some water. So the first thing you did, I was watching closely, and I saw them get you out. and you were on on the gurney there, and I saw you pull out a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Who'd you call?
Well, my phone was actually ringing. It was one of my coworkers. And he was just like, I'm just so glad to hear your voice. He was like,
It was a coworker?
because he was already calling. My phone was ringing constantly.
They were calling you in the cab?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Did they think you would answer?
I guess so. I guess if, they call it, I guess they thought that I was going to be fidgeting around in the truck. And I'm like, no. And I sat in the same spot. But yeah,
What would you have said to them had you answered the phone?
I would have lost my cool. It was a lady that was talking to me when I was in the truck. And she was like, you want me to call somebody? I was like, no, don't call nobody, because.
So you would shout that back. No, don't call
Yeah,
anybody.
I told her, I was like, I don't want this to be, if this is it, I don't want this to be the last thing that anybody hears from me. I was like, if I pass away today, I want the last happy memory that they have of me to be how they remember me. I don't want them hearing me screaming and crying and,
That was important to you.
Yep.
So while you're there, you could, could you hear your phone, feel your phone?
It was in front of me. It was right in like the dash. I kept seeing, I didn't want to look down because the steering wheel was covering up the screen for the most part. Yeah, all of my supervisors was calling, a couple of my coworkers, and as soon as Corey was calling me and he's like, I'm just so glad you okay. I'm glad I heard your voice. And I'm like, I was just crying, like I kept saying, I almost died. And
So I saw you pull out that phone, and so the first call is the phone's ringing. You answer is a coworker. You didn't make the call.
No, it was Corey. Yeah.
Real quickly, I want to talk to your dad about this too, but let's talk about the driver who's in charge, because he's going to be in court. Trevor Branham, charged with 4 counts of first-degree wanton endangerment, 1 count of operating on suspended or revoked operator's license in connection to the accident. Here's what the police and the prosecutor said. The above-named defendant unlawfully operated his motor vehicle with a suspended license and drove the vehicle under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, placing himself and other motorists at risk for serious physical injury or death. They wrote that for you. What goes through your mind about this man charged in this, and what did you see him doing?
Well, I didn't really get to get a good look at him. I was more concerned about the impact during the accident. One of the first things I said to them when I got on the bridge was, did anybody die? Because I saw how smashed up the truck was, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, even me knowing that this wasn't my fault, I still don't want that on my mind that I was involved in an accident where somebody passed away. I can't really say, I mean, I'm gonna pray for him. I'm gonna pray for him. And I'm gonna just leave it at that, because
Are you going to forgive him?
I already have. I can't hold no hate in my heart towards. We all make mistakes. And me holding a grudge or being angry for the rest of my life at him is not going to do nothing for me.
Sydney, that's remarkable. You almost went into the Ohio River and lost your life.
Mm-hmm.
Your truck lost power because you said when he hit you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can forgive him?
I have to. I have to.
But the charges are appropriate.
Yes.
I'm sure you want to make that clear.
I mean, if I go rob the store, like, and I get arrested, I still got to go to jail. The owner can forgive me, but I'm still going to have to, face the consequences of my actions. And that's just, it is what it is.
Okay. He appears in court Wednesday. So I guess you're going to follow this case closely? And what do you think should be the consequences?
I'm going to let the judge decide that, because, I mean, I didn't go to law school, so I don't know, but whatever they decide, I think he just needs to be held accountable and made to understand.
One thing I did want to bring up to you, I'm sure when you were in the cab, you were thinking of your young son.
Yes.
What do you want to tell me about him? And as a mom, you have concerns for him because he's nonverbal.
I was just afraid of, him not having me, I mean, he has other family members, but I'm still his mama, I birthed him. And with him, his condition, I was the first one to recognize that there was something, something's not right. And, I went and I expressed to his pediatrician, I said, this is not, he's flapping his hands, he's not making eye contact. I made sure that he would start getting treated for his condition, and other people would not listen to me when I was telling them something is not right and I'm gonna go get this checked out. And I was right. I knew that he had autism. I knew it from I had the Army. When I was in the military, I had to leave him when he was 6 months old. When I came back, he was 18 months. That was very difficult. But when I came back, that's when I started noticing, something wasn't right. He's not developing correctly. He's regressing. He's not making eye contact, none of that. And my other family members would be like, oh, ain't nothing wrong with him. So imagine if, I wouldn't have recognized that when I did, and he wouldn't be getting the treatment that he's getting now. Because I don't know if you know this, but I think 1 in 5 kids have autism now. So in order to it's hard to get diagnosed. You gotta wait months, maybe, and now it's years to see one of the only doctors in this area that does autism diagnosis. I made his appointment in October and he didn't get seen till May. Now it's way longer. So if I wouldn't have taken action and gotten him the help that he needed when he did, it's really hard for kids to get treatment without official diagnoses, So, I mean, me taking that initiative, it's my job, but me taking that initiative and making sure that he's not falling through the cracks and he's able to live, a normal life as much as he possibly can, that's what moms are supposed to do. And I just had to think, if something happens to me, I know he'll be taken care of, but I'm still his mom, and eventually he would have to fend for himself, and not now, but maybe 30 years from now, my mom is, she's not gonna be around forever, I'm not gonna be around forever, but I would be around longer, you know what I mean? And I was just You know, it was really hard for me to think about like leaving him behind on earth. I didn't want to think like that, but I had to realize, you know, this is a possibility. You know, in that moment, it's a possibility. So,
And you just got to celebrate Mother's Day.
yes, I did. And his birthday.
You lived to see Mother's Day.
Yep. His birthday is today. We celebrated it yesterday, but today he turned 5.